Hello and welcome to another episode of the Work Knits podcast. My name is Lauren and I'm coming to you from England in the United Kingdom. Welcome for new viewers and welcome back to those who've been here before. This is a very relaxed setup following a relatively normal structure, but it's basically just a space to talk with all of you about what I'm knitting and making. Sometimes we throw in some sewing. There hasn't been so much of that recently. Sometimes there'll be some small elements of crochet, but mainly it is knitting. And everyone is welcome. Really keen to meet all of you. Anyone interested in knitting who likes to share the joy of fibre arts with other people. So I'm actually going to jump straight in. I did have a book recommendation, but I think I'm going to post that over on Instagram if you are not following me over there and would be interested in kind of small updates and just ad hoc thoughts and sneak previews of things, then Instagram's the place to be. And you can find me at work.knits. But yeah, I think I'm just going to dive straight into core content today. So grab a cup of something to drink, maybe a snack. I'm recording this on a kind of quite warm but autumnal Sunday afternoon here in England. And I have just eaten a massive lunch, so I don't need a snack, but otherwise I'd be having a snack. So let's start with what I'm wearing. This is the Gallant Sweater Mohair edition by Kolibri. Yes, I think so. By Kolibri. It's got a kind of slightly funnel neck. I've made it quite cropped, although I must say I added length onto the body. This is a lengthened version. And the sleeves are quite short on me. Again, this is to do with the yarn I've used. So I decided not to knit the sweater in mohair, but instead to knit it with Wee County Yarns Kinross 4-ply in the colourway Quartz. This is an absolutely stunning yarn. It blooms and softens, and I know so many people say that about so many yarns, but this has to be one of the softest, initially oil covered yarn, if that makes any sense. This has to soften and bloom the most out of any of the ones I've tried. Other ones that I love, use regularly, include Holst Garn. I've used Jameson Smith. I've used some of Knoll Yarns, which are a kind of specialist yarn company for kind of machine knitters and spinners and weavers, sorry. I've used some of theirs, but this one really blooms and softens the most. But with all that blooming and softening, it also shrinks up vertically massively and blooms out horizontally. So I had to go back in and lengthen this twice, and it still comes up quite short unless I have recently blocked it. But do you know what? I quite like bracelet length. It frees up my wrists and my hands to do things. And this is such a perfect layer just to chuck on when you're not quite warm enough, but you don't want a full scale sweater. This is perfect. So lots of use out of this. So that's what I'm wearing. And we do actually have a finished object today. I didn't think we would. This was one of those couple of weeks where I feel like I've done absolutely no knitting and was a bit like, ooh, what do I have to bring to the podcast? But actually I have more to talk about than I thought, so that's good. So, finished object, and for those of you who've been following along for a little while, you'll be very familiar with this and will be like, finally, she's done it. My finished object is my Recollect cowl by Jennifer Steingass, aka Knit.Love.Wool. The colours are the camera doesn't do them justice, I'm going to be honest. They're like autumnal subtleties of some of the oranges and the pinks, they're blowing out massively on camera, so they're not that bright, they are more muted. I'm really happy with this, but getting pictures of it that do it justice is really hard. I have omitted the like twist that Jennifer Steingass includes in the pattern before you seam up the long tube you've been knitting, and I also have no idea what length she suggested to knit the tube. I just got to a point where I was like, that is long enough to go around my neck. Whoops, throw it on the floor. That's long enough to go around my neck, and I have done with knitting this. This was a real product knit for me. I'm normally somewhat of a process knitter, and it's why I've got so many whips on the go, because my whip has to really match my mood at the time for me to enjoy it. But this is a colourwork and alternating texture cowl, so you alternate between stockinette stitch and garter in these like chevron-y zigzags, and like the colourwork is very intuitive, and the switching between It's very intuitive, but for me it was just a one step too far in terms of being fiddly, but I love the finished product. In terms of yarns and needle sizes, I knit this on a 3.5mm needle. I've used several different yarns. I'm going to try and point them out as I go, moving close to the camera. So this darker reddy colour that you can see in multiple places, this is the colourway Beetroot on Lichen and Lace 4-ply sock minis. The kind of colour directly below, this kind of greeny colour, is Dark Ochre by Knitting for Olive on their merino base. The pink below that, which is hard to see compared to the orange, but this is the pink. This is Rosa Pomar Pegelhal in the colourway number 2. And then the orange directly below it is Riverknits BFL Minis. I don't have a colour name for that. And then finally the fluffy white, I don't know if you can actually see on camera, but these white zigzags are in Suri Alpaca, and those are Retrosaria Aplazenta Suri Alpaca. So it's kind of a base they bring in from someone else, but it's not necessarily branded, so they kind of sell it under their brand whilst acknowledging other people's work in the process. So yeah, that's my cowl. I have another one this exact width, double layered as this one is, that I wear all the time, that is also in autumnal colours, so I'm really looking forward to adding this one to the mix. I just need to give it a block. In all honesty, I haven't blocked this yet, but that's fine. So yeah, that is my finished object. Really pleased to have it off the needles. Feels like a real accomplishment because, as I say, it was not the most enjoyable knit, I'm going to be honest. Nothing against Jen Steingass's pattern or her designing. The finished product is beautiful, it just doesn't match with how I like to knit. So there we go. Finished object done. Whilst on the topic of finished objects though, I was just going to flag cheekily, admittedly, two of my designs, one of which is coming out. I'm going to be honest, it's most likely to be tomorrow rather than today. I was really hoping to be able to say it is on Ravelry, but I think it's going to be tomorrow. No, it will be tomorrow. So launching tomorrow is my cabled collar. It looks a little bit like, not wonky is the wrong word, but it kind of does, it looks a bit like crunkled when I'm holding it up, but that's because it's made to fit around the curves of your neck and your shoulders, and those are not flat. So if it was sitting perfectly flat in my hands, you can guarantee it would not sit perfectly on your body. So there we go. This is kind of, yeah, I'm calling it a collar. You chuck it on over a jumper, over a t-shirt, and then if you want to pull a coat on, it will sit within the kind of neckline of your coat and look as though you are wearing a jumper, but without the kind of restriction of trying to shove big knitted jumper sleeves into your coat. I don't know if anyone else has been there, but whenever I try and wear a really thick cozy woolen jumper under one of my like smarter coats, it just doesn't work. So I'm really looking forward to wearing this to kind of keep my neck and upper chest warm when I'm wearing a smarter coat. I'm really looking forward to it. This is knit on 4mm needles in Gilead by Rerum Natura in the colourway Caramel. Absolutely loved it, and a huge thank you to my test knitters, or knitter in this instance, who has been absolutely incredible in helping me get this pattern ready to go. So I just need to photograph it on me tomorrow morning, and then the pattern is pretty much there, and I just need to then allocate the time to get it onto Ravelry. But I will get, at the end I'll do a little bit of a live segment and give you a bit of an update as to why my patterns are taking longer at the moment to come out than I had hoped. On the subject of patterns, if you are in the market for a really lovely knit and something that is really easy to throw on with different things and really help you in this autumn transition season, please do go and check out my From Farm to City shawl, which is live on Ravelry. I will link it below. This looks like your classic triangular shawl, but actually it's even easier, guys, and you have a lovely detailed bit of cable knitting. To start with, you knit this little strip, and then you pick up stitches down each side and you knit the pieces going down that way, which means you are just decreasing on one side, and you finish with a really nice I-cord. So you've got a mixture of detailed knitting and then super potato chippy knitting with decreases always at the same rate so that you don't have to think too much about it. This is also very yarn friendly. You're going to need a maximum of 2 skeins of your main colour and less than 25 grams, or maybe even less than 15 grams of your mane here, and it's knit in DK weight yarn. And I am also moving nicely into whips on a hat design that will kind of speak to or match this little shawl, and the hat would use up the remaining yarn if you bought 2 skeins of DK weight yarn, 100 grams of 2 100 gram skeins of DK weight yarn. The hat would use up the remainders perfectly so that you're not left with lots of leftovers. So I think that's in here. It is. So I showed this last time on the podcast, but I have done a tiny bit more ribbing. But basically this is going to be like a beanie style hat, but with a bit of a twist. Like with the shawl, you knit the cable section first. This then goes around your head that way, and then you are knitting a 1x1 rib, and there'll be instructions for making the top. You'll then pick up on the bottom and knit, I think I'm going to go for, again, ribbing, but a folded, you fold up to the cable. So just something a little bit different, but also familiar is the hope. And both the shawl and this hat have been knit up in John Arbon Textiles yarns that I purchased myself. The kind of lovely neutral colour is their Pure Elements DK 2022 limited edition, which they still had some skeins of when I went to visit the mill back in July, August time, I'm thinking. And this is the shade Valley Mist. It's not dyed, it's just that's what the combination of fibres that produce this colour, that's what they've called it. And then the pink is an Appledore DK mini skein in the colourway Pig Snout, and it's got so many gorgeous colours in it. I'm hoping the camera's going to focus. It's beautiful. So I've done a bit more on that hat, but not masses to write home about, to be honest. I didn't pack this for my travels this week, so I will go into that more at the end, but yeah, was travelling a lot this week and didn't pack that. Other small whips, and I don't think I can give you masses of background on this, but I will just give you a sneaky flash of a sample, like a swatch I'm knitting for a really exciting project. But yeah, I'm not going to give any details, but I'll just give you a bit of a teaser. So this is like a textured sample, and I'm playing with whether or not I want to do the texture in colour work or not. So that's super exciting, and I really enjoyed knitting on that. Very, very addictive. So that's a couple of bits I've been working on. Then I think some of you who've been watching for a while will be expecting to see a finished George's sweater today. This is a pattern by Kolibri by Johana. Beautiful, beautiful pattern, I think quite innovative in terms of the shape and the construction and stuff. And I was knitting 2 of these, one was on the needles, another one to come, for my bridesmaids for my wedding next month. A very kind of quick pattern in the sense it's on I'm knitting it on 5mm needles, so when you're working on it, it goes quite quickly. However, I got to a point where I was doing the I-cord around the edge of the neckline and the back. Let me see if I can show this easily. Let's see, so you're looking at the back of the sweater, which is all caught up, which is not ideal. 1 second guys, sorry, professional podcaster here. Give me a moment. Why is that all? Maybe that will be better. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so this is an armhole, this is a back piece that's not yet got a I-cord on it. This is another back piece that does have an I-cord on it. You can kind of see the difference. So this back piece, the shaping on it was not quite what I wanted. You can kind of see here it's got a bit more of a almost like a bump, or yeah, it's just a bit inconsistent in the shape. But I think overall, like on the bridesmaids, it will look fine. The challenge I now have is the bridesmaids dresses have arrived, and despite matching my yarn to a little tiny sample of fabric, when that colour is then en masse, the colour really doesn't go with the sweater, which is heartbreaking because I have spent quite a lot of money on this yarn. This is Knitting for Olive, Merino and Kid Silk Mohair in the colourway Bottle Green. And then I think the mohair is slate green, and I think the slate green adds a kind of like earthy tone to the green that really isn't working with the dresses, although that being said, even the bottle green held up by itself doesn't quite work with the dresses. So I'm actually just at a point where I'm like, I'm not even going to bother getting overly upset about this. I've just got to decide whether I want to push on and just accept the fact they don't go with the dresses perfectly, or whether I want to park this and still knit the jumpers but knit them as Christmas presents, or what I want to do. But I just didn't see any point in plugging away on something that I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it in the end. I still really love the design, still really want something hand knit at my wedding, but yeah, just not sure this is going to be it, but we'll see. Half that's already on the floor, so I'm going to casually dump that on the floor. But yeah, a lot of good things to say about the pattern. I do really like it. I do think that the shaping of the V at the back is not how I would do it, and I struggle to see how the designer has made their sample look the way it has based on their instructions. And I say that with very, very good will and very good, good intentions. You know, as some of you who've tested my things will know, it's so easy as you're kind of making something and trying to design that you kind of you think, oh, I'll remember how I did that, and actually you don't, and then you kind of, as you're writing the pattern, you try and kind of fill in the blanks and it just doesn't quite work. I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened here, but I just, yeah, without giving away what's in the pattern, because it is a paid for pattern, it just doesn't, for me, I couldn't get what they were asking me to do to work. So I don't know. So given that I haven't been working on that, what have I been working on? Guys, I have been indulging myself in doing some of the projects that I've had on my mind for ages. And that means that's one of the reasons I was like, oh, I haven't done that much knitting, but at the same time, I'm so excited to chat to you because I've got some really exciting things on the needles. That swatch is one of them. As I said, I can't really say anything more. But I've also got some other projects on the needle, and oh, these are like dream 2023 knits for me, which just makes me like, I can't keep the smile off my face. And I think that's what knitting should do for us. And I think sometimes, particularly those with super pressure to go on, put stuff up on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, you can kind of lose sight of like what's actually bringing you joy, and just put so much pressure on yourself. So I've been relieving that pressure, and I've just like, my deal to myself was I physically don't have enough needles to do these projects unless I get this done. But then after that, all bets are off. So, okay, I'll show you. I wanted to have a bit more of this done, but that's fine. We're not putting pressure on ourselves. There's enough for you guys to get the gist. Let me turn this the right way round. Again, for those of you who are new to the channel, I do something very weird with my knitting, or at least I didn't realise it was weird until I started talking to other knitters. But I actually knit all my things inside out. Like, I knit them the way the pattern's asking, but instead of having the right side of the garment showing on the outside of my needles and knitting on the kind of side of the circular needle that's closest to you, I just feel more comfortable knitting with my needles working on the kind of side of the circle furthest away from me, which means in order to do that I have to turn on my knitting inside out. It really doesn't change how you make garments, but it does mean when I come to show you on the podcast I have to get them all round the right way. So okay, so probably at this point it looks like a fairly standard raglan jumper to you. I have used the Petite knit no frills sweater, which I've had the pattern for years. I have used the smallest size cast on numbers, but then the minute I've cast on and used those numbers, that's it, I don't look at the pattern again. I have cast this on I want to say 4mm, yeah, 4mm needles. What is different about this raglan? Okay, so I've cast on below the neckline, and as you can probably see, I have got something very cool, I think, going on the shoulder. So the book is across the room from me, I can see it, but like silly me, I didn't bring it over with me. But I've been looking at a kind of texture book that's been showing me how to do welts. And one of the things, or like the little kind of projects or things it shows you how to make, are these tiny little diamond shapes, where in this instance the light blue is in stockinette and then the ridges are in like garter. And I had yarn left over from my Time to Decompress socks, which is one of my designs I made earlier this year. I had some Coop Knits Socks Yeah left over in the colourways Chryso and Almadine. Chryso is the light blue, Almadine's the orange. And so I just started playing with making these two-tone little diamonds, and I thought, oh my gosh, these are awesome. How about if I make them and then I sew them onto the shoulder of a sweater? Now that sounds really easy, but these are very like stretchy and they're a kind of funny shape. And then when you're working with multiple of them, it's just about making sure they're all like applied in the right way. So I've ended up sewing these 4 together, and then currently I have sewn them along these edges and then stopped here, because when I was doing my raglan sleeve shaping, I haven't quite made the raglan deep enough that this can be sewn straight on, and I want to make sure I get enough tension on these that you can see all the kind of coloured stripes, if you see what I mean. They're not too bunched up, so I want to apply some tension so you can see more of the colour. But I think this is just so freaking cool. Like, maybe other people won't agree with me, but I just think it's quite unusual. It's quite like fashion forward from a hand knit point of view, maybe not from like a kind of, you know, runway point of view. But I'm really loving it. Like, it feels very professional. I'm just literally like whip stitching them down on the sides, but I think you can barely tell. So there's going to be, I need to just make 2 more of the diamonds to make the shoulder cap on this side. I'm then going to pick the neckline back up, and I think I can't quite decide on whether I want to do a ribbed neckline or a folded neckline with an elastic in. And then I need to obviously finish going down the body, and then I think this is going to end up being like a short sleeved t-shirt. I had wanted it to be a full-on sweater, but I am knitting this in I've got 2 skeins of Rauwerk Sport, and this is 1 skein used. I'm 1 skein down, so I've got to make the whole rest of this with 1 skein. So it's going to be a massive game of yarn chicken. Keep your fingers crossed for me, guys, that I can at least make, and it might be quite cropped, but I at least want like a t-shirt out of it. If you have not heard of or worked with Rauwerk Sport before, Rauwerk is a really, really lovely brand that I heard loads about 5 years ago, and I think people have maybe stopped speaking about it quite so much. They are an eco-friendly and ethical yarn producer that basically work in like very, very small batches from a single flock in Munich. It's a 2-ply woolen spun yarn. They call it a sport. I'm going to be honest, I think it's closer to a DK. It's creating quite a dense fabric on 4mm needles, but it's really lovely. And this is in the colourway Quartz. I have, as I say, 2 of them. And it also tells you, so I'm now reading from the ball band, sorry to be looking away from you, but it tells you when this yarn was sheared and made. So shearing took place in Munich in 2017/2018. The yarn was then spun in Chiemgau area of Bavaria. I'm probably not pronouncing the first name correctly, in the autumn of 2018. So it's just really lovely ethical yarn, and I've had this in my stash now for 2 years. I got bought 2 skeins as a Christmas present from my sister's boyfriend. Yeah, but 2 skeins, and I've been waiting for a really special project, and this just felt like it, but I just don't know if I could even get hold of another skein of it easily, and if so, you know, I doubt it would have the same colouring, because this was from so many years ago, like 5 years ago. This was sheared from the sheep. So yeah, if I hold this up close, I don't know if you can see, but the kind of natural yellowiness and grey of the sheep really comes through. So it's kind of grey but with like a yellow undertone, which I think is quite unusual. Don't know if it really goes with my skin tone, don't know if it brings out the best, but I really love it with the orange and blue. So there we go, guys. It's looking very micro and very cropped, but hey ho. So that's some dream knitting for me right there. Very, very exciting. So as I say, I've just got to make 2 more diamonds for the other shoulder and knit some short sleeves, and then I'll kind of position the other diamond on the shoulder. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, so I did a raglan, I think I want to say for like 16 raglan increases. I've now split the sleeves, and then I've knit straight for 8 rows. 5 knit side, 5 purl side, and then I've joined in the round again with 2 stitches under arm, and then every 5 rows I'm decreasing a stitch either side of those 2 stitches. That makes any sense? So you've got 4 stitches decreased every 5 rows, just to accommodate for bust and then tailoring down across the rib cage. So yeah, but guys, this project's making me so happy. The minute I've got the other shoulder pad on, I'll be taking lots of pictures and putting them on Instagram. I really wanted to get a picture of the circular yoke with the 2 shoulder pads sewn on, but just for like the proportions of the construction, that's actually not going to work as a photo because the diamonds would be hanging so far off, it just wouldn't look good. So anyway, we'll get there. So that's a really lovely piece of dream knitting that's been making me really happy. And then I'm probably going to collapse this little pile over here by doing this. This kind of slightly bridges over into acquisitions. I have got a few acquisitions to share with you today, but I think this one is a project, so bear with me if you're not someone that likes acquisitions. But I, as some of you will know, I'm on a real like navy pink kick this year. And I have just had this idea in my head for so long to do a slip over but with zips down the side. Is that really rogue? I really want to do it. I don't quite yet know if it'd be a zip that would undo completely like on a coat, or if it'd be a zip that would zip upwards into your armpit. I don't know yet. I kind of want the zip toggle down at my waist, but let's see. But I've cast on. So this would probably be the back panel. I think I'd knit the back and the front separately and seam together to get a really nice bit of structure over the shoulders. I'd quite like it to be quite high necked, kind of quite straight and boxy on the sleeve. But yeah, that's where we're up to. And I'm knitting this, again, bit rogue, bit yarn chickeny. I have got 2 skeins of Ficalana Arwetta in the navy. And then this week when I was in Brussels, I picked up this incredible massive cake of navy mohair from Katia yarn, and this is Ingenua. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is 78% mohair, 13% polyamide and 9% virgin wool. Massive cake, but actually only 50 grams. It's quite a thick mohair. So I'm holding that with the Ficalana Arwetta. The reason I've got 2 on the go at the time is I don't think that's going to be enough meterage for a whole slip over. So I'm kind of alternating skeins with a leftover ball of Gepard Garn mohair in navy. Now they are pretty much the same colour of navy, but one's just slightly silkier than the other, so I think by alternating them it will give me a nice even fabric is the hope. I am then, after some initial ribbing, and then I'm going to carry on ribbing just on the sides going all the way up, but in the main body I'm going to do some fleece stitch in luminous pink, Rico Designs Essential, a kid, super kid mohair silk. This is in the colour 064, but it's like the, I mean it's looking more orange on camera, but it is like the most highlighter pink. It's incredible. I don't yet know if I'm going to hold like 2 or even 3 strands of this together, or if I'm going to hold it with this darker pink, or I even have a really hot pink from Jameson & Smith, a 2-ply jumper weight yarn, really hot pink that might just match better with the hot pink here. But yeah, this is like this is like me really beginning to get into the creative headspace. Ideas are flowing. It's just so exciting. So I cast this on last night. I'm knitting this on 4.5mm needles, I believe. This could end up being so experimental that it's just too hard to make it into a pattern. If it feels like it's going quite well, I might try and make this into a pattern. Let's see. So there we go, guys, some really super exciting knitting, like really just knitting what's in my head and my heart, and I love it. Before I transition though into acquisitions, I thought I'd just share with you some other things I'm excited to knit and also ask for your suggestions. So last episode I was talking about my acquisition then was some King Cole DK big value yarn, and I was explaining that I have got a probably like an adult XXL's worth of sweater yarn in DK for £13, 13 British pounds, which I just thought was amazing. This is a 100% acrylic yarn, but it has a lot of properties, the texture and the look of pure wool. So a really, really great option. And I would like to do a really heavily textured sweater in this, like an oversized sweater. please leave below in the comments any ideas when it comes to a textured sweater design. I would love to hear. I know the Moby sweater and the Storm sweater from Petite Knit are super popular. There are also some from, why am I forgetting her name? Kika? Is her full name Kika? Oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. That's so annoying. My phone's next to me, but I won't look it up. You guys will all be shouting at the screen. You know who I mean. Super famous. The woman who crocheted and knit her own wedding dress. She's got loads of designs that are very heavily textured. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Or like if I've got any people from Norway or the Scandi countries watching, and there are any like traditional Norwegian patterns that are charted and you think I could like use Google Translate and get, you know, do it that way, let me know. Would love to knit a pattern in another language. Would be a fab experience. So yeah, just let me know. So that's some future knitting plans. Some other future knitting plans is I'd love to knit another one of these, the Gallant sweater, and this time I'd like to knit it in Issea Highland wool. This is coming up very orange on camera, but this is a corally pink colour, and yeah, I would love to knit another one of these. Whether I hold it with mohair or not, don't know. That always really like blows the price on these kind of things, and the Highland wool is a very good price point, or very reasonable price point for 100% wool. So currently looking at kind of about £18 for an adult sweater. So if I can do it just with this, maybe I should try. Anyway, another one of these coming because I just love this so much. And then very finally, the last kind of project I've had on my mind for ages is this. I've been gifted lots of single balls of Knitting for Olive merino, not from them but from friends or family, and the ones in my hands are mustard, pearl grey and dusty petroleum blue, and I want to knit a tube cowl like the Recollect cowl, but just plain stockinette stitch with flea stitch with the colours, the main colour being this grey, and then half it will have the petroleum blue and half will have the yellow, and they'll meet in the middle. That's my plan. So yeah, that's another project that I think I might cast on soon. That'd be great train knitting. I think I'd really enjoy that. Quite the pile behind me. Right, I think I'll leave the life update right until the very end. Do some acquisitions now. If you would like to stick around for the life update but are not interested in acquisitions, understood. I will try and add a timestamp, although my editing time for this video this afternoon is going to be very restricted. So let's just say jump forwards by 5 minutes. Let's say that. Here's hoping. Maybe. If I haven't got that right, I'm really sorry. If you are sticking around for acquisitions, not life updates, hopefully this works well for you. So in time order, I was thinking of knitting another version of my From Farm to City shawl, which I showed you all earlier, but also I'm just having a real DK yarn kick. I think I found a lot more kind of DK weight yarns that are really within my price range, and so I've not really knit with DK before, and I'm trying to make the most of it. So I found a shop on the outskirts of London that does Ficalana Panilla base, which is a 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and it's kind of a sport to DK weight. So I have bought, I want to say like 4 skeins of this colour, which is 957. Sorry for the crinkling. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. And then one in colour 366, which I think they call Sugared Almond. So I was going to make a slip over in this or another Farm to City shawl. I haven't quite yet decided, but this yarn is about £4.50 a ball. So again, quite a good price point, given that you could make a hat or 2 hats or a cowl, or there's so much you can make with just one ball, which I think is fab. And I really do love the Ficalana yarn. Lots of it is used for the petite knit patterns, so great to have that accessible here in the UK. Dipping down. So I purchased that online, wanting to support different UK yarn shops, because I know at the moment with the cost of living crisis, lots of yarn businesses are struggling a little bit, so kind of supporting where I can. But I have also been over in Brussels for 4 days this week, and I've been trying to make it to a Brussels local yarn shop my last couple of trips. There is one that I really want to go to that has opening hours which are really difficult for me to make. There is another one that I really wanted to go to, and their opening hours are much better. And I'm struggling to remember the name. It's got like tulip in the name, but yeah, it's very central, and I popped in there very briefly in our lunch break. The staff were lovely. They've got sewing machines in there, they've got knitting machines, they've got crochet classes, they've got all sorts in there. It's a real kind of maker's space, which is lovely. And I picked up the hot pink mohair that you've seen, the massive blue navy plate of mohair, and some other bits. So I really focused on stuff that I thought I couldn't or would struggle to get hold of here in the UK, with one kind of exception. The exception was I picked up 2 little skeins of Lang Yarn's jowl sock in the colour number 83.0023. I picked up 2 little balls of that. That's because the price was really reasonable compared to what I can access in the UK, and I hadn't seen this colour. It's kind of like a slightly like nuanced marley navy, grey, sorry. I don't know if that's coming up on camera, but it's like not flat, it's got like tonality, so I love that. Bought those 2 other mohairs, and then also from Lang Yarns, which I had not seen before, is their Muse base, which is a hand-dyed 80% soy alpaca, 17% polyamide and 3% merino extra fine yarn from Lang. This is colour 1117.0002. But I didn't know they did a hand-dyed base, and I just thought the colours in this were really cool, and I was going to basically knit this in stripes with the grey, probably into like a little shawl or like a very like loose knit top, I think is my idea. So really excited to knit that up. I think that's going to be really funky. And then the final thing I picked up was it's actually a crochet yarn, so I don't know how it's going to respond to being knitted, but it's this fine kind of, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on camera, it's got gold in it. Maybe it's going to show. And this is another Rico Designs Essential. It's called Crochet Glitz, 250 meters in 50 grams, and it's kind of like this creamy beigey colour with gold, and I just think this would be so darn cute held in like a hat or a cowl, or even in like mittens, so I picked that up. So that was my little trip to a yarn shop in Brussels. I feel like I've been talking a million miles an hour, but we are almost there, and I will turn now to sorry, I was just checking time because I don't want to be rabbiting at you guys for ages, but I will now turn to a very brief life update for those of you who are interested. Where to begin? Okay, so for those who've joined the podcast relatively recently, myself and my other half, my partner, we are currently living with family temporarily. How long temporarily is quite hard to define. We owned as a very brief recap, we owned a property in the southwest of the United Kingdom, which we bought a few years ago. We've been renovating it, and then I have always been commuting into London for work, but my offices moved even further towards the east of London, and that made the commute from the southwest really difficult. And then also my other half, their job moved closer towards London as well. So we decided that we needed to sell our property and move closer to London. Now, the housing market in the UK, as some of you may or may not know, is in a terrible state right now. So selling our house is proving really quite challenging, which is a shame because it's a lovely house and we'd love to stay there. But anyway, it's proving very challenging. So we are trying to figure out what is the best move. We don't want to be outstaying our welcome with family who've been incredibly supportive and are kind of been very patient with everything just kind of plodding along at whatever rate it plods along at. But yeah, we are now trying to figure out different options given the state of the housing market, and given where we need to be based. So I haven't really got any update for you house-wise, although you may have already seen some like little additions to the space I'm in. You might see this space change quite a lot, I think, now that we have been moved in with family for about 3 months. We are like, actually we need to make the space really work for us, and we have the luxury of doing so. So we're going to kind of, this is the room I'm currently in is like our bedroom, but it's also where all our clothes are and half our stuff from our old house, and it's also where all my knitting stuff is. It's just a very multifunctional room, so I think we're gonna play around with this space a bit more, try and make it work for us. In other areas of our life, so I've now been in my new job for several months, about coming up on 3 I think. That's going well. It's very, very busy. I'm travelling for work quite a lot, which is a real privilege, and I'm really enjoying it. But it means that I always have to consider what knitting I can or can't pack based on kind of how much luggage I'm taking around with me. So that has restricted my knitting more than I thought it would. And yeah, work's just generally quite busy. So, and I'm working in the offices a lot more rather than from home. So lunch breaks, it's harder to knit. And then kind of, I guess, final piece of our very hectic jigsaw puzzle at the moment is wedding prep. So as I mentioned, we're getting married next month. It's absolutely come around so quickly, flown by. So we're doing all the usual wedding prep, which currently there is stuff for the wedding spread across 3 different properties, all of which are geographically very diverse. So trying to make sure that everything is in the right place by the right time, and I'm popping home to see my parents a lot, because lots of our stuff is based at their house. So yeah, there's just a lot of travel involved with that. So with all of that being said, and the fact that I have a role with a charity outside of work, there is just an awful lot going on at the moment. I love my knitting. This time on the podcast is really important to me, and it's my time, it's protected time for me, but doing designing as well on top of that, again, it's something I really love, but it's something that has to take a back seat at times, unexpectedly, for everything else that's going on. So I'm sorry that the kind of pattern releases have not been as slick as I would have liked them. There's not the kind of run up, all the materials coming out, content showing you what's coming. I'm not being very like certain around dates. My test knitters have been very patient with me. But these designs will come out, it's just whether they come out on the day that I always hoped they would. So for example, that cable collar will be out tomorrow, not today, because I just need to make sure I prioritise the time I have with my other half today to discuss stuff around the wedding, around our living accommodation, whereas tomorrow I'll be working from home and he will be off at work. So yeah, there's a little life update for you. There's definitely pockets of stress, but actually, despite it all, me and my other half are very close. We're not arguing, we're not getting too stressed at each other, which is a miracle because, you know, it's a very stressful time for everyone. And generally speaking, each individual thing is very manageable. It's just quite a lot all in one go. So yeah, that's where I'm up to, but I'm so grateful for all of your support, all the really lovely comments, people kind of really reinforcing that I should take time for myself when I need to, not to feel guilty, people really encouraging me to enjoy my knitting, telling me about their knitting. God, it's so nice on the train in the morning to be kind of reading what all of you are doing and how you're doing. That's really like a really pleasurable time for me, so please do keep letting me know down in the comments how you are doing. And yeah, giveaway is still running in the background. Keep talking to me. 1,000 subscribers is very, very close. We've kind of been teetering very close for a very long time. You know, I'm very grateful for each and every one of you, so that is by no means a complaint, but really would love to get these prizes out to people. So if you have been watching all this time and haven't yet clicked that subscribe button, please consider it. There are so many people who've been actively engaging and waiting for this giveaway to happen, and I'm just very excited to get packages sorted and sent out to people. And yeah, other than that, I think I will leave you to it. As I said, let me know how you're doing down below. Let me know what you think regarding a textured jumper pattern. That'd be really nice. And I will speak to you guys. I hopefully in 2 weeks time. I have got my hen do in 2 weeks, so it probably won't be the Sunday, but let's just see. But there will be an episode coming in roughly 2 weeks time regardless. Bye for now and happy knitting.